All right. What's going on, party people? This is your man Grill. I am extra excited, extra giddy, extra pumped. I'm serious because right now we have one of the most famous, fabulous, and most exciting signing service owners that I've had the pleasure of working with. Basically the whole 5 years I've been in here, and working with her has elevated my ability to do closings. She has a very unique way of doing things, and it took me off kilter at first because I wasn't used to a signing company actually being there. You know, a lot of signing companies, when you call them or you get in trouble and they say, "Oh yeah, call us," and then when you call them, they're nowhere to be found. But this young lady, anytime I text, anytime I call, she's there. So I learned some great things from her, learned more how to be even more professional, even though she didn't directly like, "Hey, Griff, this is how to be professional." But because of the way she carried herself, it made me step my game up even the more. So we're going to bring on Miss Marcy. Always
Hi.
Tiberio.
Tiberio, perfect.
Oh wow, I got it right. Okay, I've been practicing. Tiberio. So we have Miss Marcy Tiberio from from Professional Notary Services, and we're just going to sit here and talk about. I guess the best way to say it is how to improve the relationship between the notaries and the signing companies. Okay. Now she's been in this business, if I'm not mistaken, 10 years now, correct?
10 years with my signing company. That's
All
correct.
right, 10 years. So now feel free to go ahead and share with the people who you are, your background, so that they can understand everything they need to know about you before we get into
Absolutely. And I don't know if I can live up to that introduction, but I'll certainly do my
it.
best. So I have been in business 10 years with my signing company. I was an independent notary signing agent through almost all of that, still currently as well. I started in this business as a receptionist for a national title company, worked my way up to assistant vice president, went and opened a settlement division for another title company, and from there went and ran the closing department for a mortgage banker that was national. So I've been in a lot of aspects of the mortgage lending world. When I left my last job, this was sort of a good fit, I suppose, because I'd already had the background. So I think what's interesting about my signing company is that, we have a background in real estate lending. So when there's a question that comes up, sometimes you don't have to necessarily go to the lender or the title company. We can kind of assist you along those ways. So that's my background. Not super exciting, but that's where I came from. And now here we are 10 years later as a national signing company.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So now, as I was sharing with Marcy, when I first started in 2018, I tried the old thing of, hey, go out and market yourself to all these different title companies. Now, I'm not, y'all know, I ain't giving nobody no free cookies, ice cream, no gift cards, none of that. I went in there and I should say, hey, here's how I can help y'all. And they just told me straight up, we don't use notaries off the street. We got people in the background. We got signing services we use. And I waited about 6 months and went back again, following the advice that was out there in the street, and it probably still is. And another person said, look, the reason why we don't want to use mobile notaries coming off the street is because we can't rely on y'all. We've been burnt too many times because the notary will come in here and supposed to be here for a 2 o'clock appointment, but because it gets delayed just a little bit, they gone. They leave because, oh, I got another appointment, or they show up late, or they don't show up at all. So I said, okay, I said, okay, gotcha. So I said, if a signing company calls you and we happen to be on the thing to work with, then you'll do some work for us. So I said, okay, let me get myself together for the signing companies. And then I had to learn what the signing companies was all about. I learned the signing company operates based off of the personality of the owner and the people they have working with them who support the owner. So I had to learn that, okay, I can't expect them to understand what's going on with me out here in the street, but I got to be patient with them because they have a task as a closer, the post closer, the scheduler, and figure out what's going on. And that's what I learned over the years. But there's a lot of misunderstanding about the signing companies and what, how they get their fees and what. I mean, I hear people say, well, they're getting paid all of this money and they're giving us a little bit of this. Now, one of the things that I've always said, and I heard the term when I was growing up, but never really looked into it, is the term lowball. Now, what I learned about lowball, when I looked at the definition, lowball means there's an agreed upon price and somebody is trying to get that price lower than expected. So the key word that I figured out was, remember, this is what we learned in English, is agreed upon. So now I had to refer back to what I've heard other people say. They said the fees range between 75 and 300. I was like, where's the agreed upon price? If there's no agreed upon price from professional notary services, Notary Go, coast to coast, first class, unlimited ink, if we haven't agreed that this will be the price, then how can I say they're lowballing me? Because in order for them to lowball me, that means they have to agree that this is the price. But you know what? We're going to go under that. And the example I always give is, we know Notary Go is typically $60.
Yeah.
If you know Notary Go is $60, the whole world knows Notary Go is $60. And then when you go to do an order from them, which is no different from what you did, and they start talking about 30, that's lowballing, because it's like, wait a minute, we know this is the normal fee that y'all pay. We've asked y'all to increase. Y'all said, nope, it's it. So that's what it is. So I think the agreed upon pay thing, or this idea of what we should get paid, comes from other people, because when the signing company contacts us, what do they say? This is what we're paying. They didn't ask us what we want to get paid. They said, this is what we're paying. Either you accept it or you reject it. Now, if a person calls you and they say, hey, we have this order and we normally pay 95, well, they're telling you that's what they pay. They're not trying to lowball you. Now, of course, you may want 150, sure. And because they're offering you 95, you say, well, you're lowballing me. They don't know what you want. They don't know until they talk to you and they're telling you this is where we're at. Now, to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marcy, if a person contacts me, they don't tell me what their fee is, but they ask me what mine is, and I say, okay, my fee is 150. Now, to me, if they come back with, well, we're just gonna pay you 60, because okay, you asked me and I told you, but then you greatly dropped my fee. Now, to me, dropping it to 125, and to me, even 100, that ain't bad. It's not, because you might just be 17 pages for 100. Okay, cool. Sure. But this is what I'm seeing out here from the notaries. They're thinking that there's this agreed upon price. And I was asking myself today, well, where did they get that from? Either within their own mind, or they heard it on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or from a notary training session that said notary should get paid this. And the old adage, and then I'll let you talk, is, well, you need to get paid your worth. And I'm like, I've heard from many, many signing company owners and schedulers. They're like, you haven't established your worth with me because you haven't even done anything. Why are you calling me at the end of the month when we got 300 closings this last week to do, talking about make me preferred? They told me, they said, we're trying to figure out why you aren't up there doing some signings if you're all that. The floor is yours, Ms. Marcy.
So let me start by saying I don't love the terminology lowball, because I just don't know what that entails for some people. And I think we are very quick to judge when a notary takes a signing for less than what we would take it for. And then we're quick to say, well, you're hurting the industry.
Right.
I actually don't think that that's true, right? I look at other things and I think to myself, well, as notaries, I see all the time where they're asking, hey, who has the cheapest insurance? Where can I buy the cheapest toner? Where can I get the cheapest paper, right?
Correct.
I'm not saying that that's true for services, but I'm assuming most of us do not run out and hire the first attorney or tax accountant, or, right? We shop for services, and maybe you don't get the lowest paying one, you get the highest paying one. Am I saying that that's good or bad? I'm saying that's that's how it works, right?
True.
I
Agree.
also think we're not cognizant of what someone else's expenses are. And I tell everyone this all the time. When I get a notary says to me, I won't leave the house for $100. Okay, but what is entailed in that $100, right? Is it a 150-page refinance signing 30 minutes from your house? Or is it a 20-page seller signing 4 houses down from you? Is that bottom line, right? That's the important number. So it's the same thing when people say, oh, you can make 6 figures. Okay, gross, but that means nothing to me because how much am I bringing to that bottom line? That's the
Correct.
number for me that's important. So I think when we talk about these lowball fees, I kind of feel like there's a clientele for everyone, right? Some people shop at Walmart for t-shirts. Some are fine to go to Banana Republic or Abercrombie for t-shirts, right? They can pay $10 or they can pay $50, and there are people who will buy on either end. I feel like it's sort of the same way with services, right? Now, I can't attest to anyone else other than how I operate, but I can say my fee doesn't really change whether you're a brand new notary for me or you've been with me for 10 years. I get a fee, and for the most part, I take 25% off of that fee, unless I have to pay for FedEx labels for my customers, whatever. And 75% goes to my notary.
Right.
And that's what how my fee structure works out. And anyone who asks me, I think you can attest to that, I'll tell you how much I make. It's not a secret for me, right? I'm not going to hide behind that wall. I'm going to tell you. If I get paid $200, it's $50 to me. It's $150 to you. If you come back to me and say, hey, can I get more money for a larger package, or it took an extra half an hour, I'm going to probably tell you, I gave you all I had. The rest is what I have to be profitable. But on the flip side of that, should you get paid $95 from a signing company and then you go back and ask them for more money and they give it to you, in your mind, you're probably thinking that's amazing. Like they gave me more money. But in my mind, I'm thinking they already had that money to give to you. Right? If they can afford to give you that extra money, then that's where we are. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the fee that you agreed upon. And if you're comfortable with that fee and you can be profitable, then I don't think it matters that someone else will say to you, well, I wouldn't do that for less than 150 or 200 and 250. If you can do it and still be profitable and be happy with the profit margin that you're making, then I think that that's important. I think the rest of it is sort of irrelevant. So I don't blame the current situation and what's going on for new notaries taking less money. I take it because I can tell you as a signing company, lenders are cutting their fees to try to bring in more business, right? And that means all of these cuts have to come somewhere. So they're taking money from title companies. Hey, I need you to reduce your settlement fee. And the title company is saying to me, hey, can you reduce your notary fee? And I, fortunately for me, have only had to reduce one fee. And that's the only one, only because I'm paying a FedEx label only by $25. So it's not really a huge deal. But I have had to turn away customers and say, I can't take less, right? Like I can't be profitable and I can't pay my notaries. This isn't a signing company thing. And I know I've seen it in the threads, right? Where the signing companies are trying to cut our fees. It's coming from the top, you guys, right? Like everyone's fighting for that little piece of business and to be competitive.
Right.
To be competitive is about closing costs. And like we just talked about, no one goes out and gets the first mortgage from the bank they go to, right? They shop fees. And that is why we're sort of in the place that we are today. So I know it's a little bit of a veer from what you asked me about.
Oh, well, no, you good. No, you good.
But I do think, we have to stop blaming new notaries. And you said Notary Go. Notary Go is ripe for new notaries. It's a perfect situation for them because they're very forgiving of mistakes, right? They hold your hand through it. They kind of build you so that you can go direct, because going direct as a brand new notary is really hard. And I'm not against that, actually. I think you should vary, right? You should go direct. You should have lenders and title companies and signing companies, but we all have to start somewhere, right? And those companies are meant to be starting points. Now, I know notaries who are in rural areas who are able to negotiate higher and they do a great job and they're happy to do that and it happens. But for the most part, there are signing companies that are built to be lower fees specifically for that reason, right? Newer notaries try to get experience who make a lot of mistakes that they have to hold hands for. And then there are other signing companies who feel opposite of that, right? They kind of operate like the title company. Here's the job. Go ahead and do it. Let me know if there are any problems, but otherwise we're all good. So it just depends on who you want to work for. And I think that's the last part of this. No one says you
Yeah.
have to take a job for 30 or 40 or 50 or $60, right? You can just say no, thank you, and move on. I don't
Right.
understand the idea of like not being gracious about it. Okay, it might be insulting to you, but you never know where that scheduler or person that you're arguing with on the other end of the phone is going to end up with, right? Or end up where they're
Right.
going to be. And that's not
Right.
where you want to be. You don't want to burn any bridges. So if it doesn't work for you and your fee schedule in your business and how you run your
Mhm.
business is your business, then just move on to the next one, right?
Yeah, and I agree because one of the things that I heard from a signing company on a couple of years ago is that sometimes the person said some title companies will come and say, "Hey, we can offer you this batch of work, and this is how much we're going to pay you,
Yeah.
and what you're going to pay to the notary will be this dollar amount.
Yeah.
You can't go any higher than this."
Mhm.
So you take a person who may be tired of going out and doing the notary work, tired of going in and out of houses, the driving, the this, that, and the other, or they just can't and they start a signing company and they're struggling. And then some title company comes to them and says, "Hey, I can get you $6,000, or no, let's just say $20,000 worth of business each month.
Mhm.
$20,000 worth of business each month. Your fee that I'm gonna pay you is going to be this, and you can have to pay the notary no more than this. And if under these circumstances an issue comes up, you can report to us, and we will increase the fee to compensate that under these certain conditions." So that means let's just use 150 for example, and that's why I did that video a while back about how to make $30,000 off of off of a $75 signing,
Sure.
which is 400 signings a month at $75. That's $30,000. If you, the notary, have been told you need 100 or 125, that signing company owner knows that they can't go to the title company because they've already signed an agreement saying this is what I will accept, and I can come to you under these circumstances, and those circumstances don't exist. The circumstances that you just want more money, not that you was held up, the sinus was difficult, or whatever. It was, like something that was out of your control. There was a problem with the documents from the title or none of that exists. You just want more money. Well, that person got to take it out of their pocket, which means now I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. And now to me, that hurts notaries more because guess what? If I got to do this with 30% of the closings that I do this month, that's money that I don't have for next month. Now I gotta try to find a way to make money and pay all of my bills with 30% less because I'm in a 30% deficit. That's not going to work for anybody. And people can only pay you, and I keep saying this, out of what they have. If they have it, they will give it. But as we have learned that some notaries get greedy, they don't and they want more and more. And then what makes it worse is that they start bragging. Now, here's a question I've always said, but I'm gonna ask you:
Okay.
Has when you send out an order for, let's say, $115,
Mhm.
has a person ever responded back to you saying, "I'll do it for less"?
So I will, no, not necessarily, but I'm going to say this. Um, we ended up with a new customer who had a lot of work in a very rural area that we normally don't operate in.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to work with a batch of new notaries, and it did not go well. Really did not go well. And one of the signings, the notary made 15 errors in this package and refused, was the buyer and seller, refused to go out and get them corrected. And I had to get a new notary out there that day to get it fixed. So I called this notary and said,
Mm-hmm.
I really am kind of in a jam, and this is the situation, and I'm happy to pay you. I don't remember what it was, $100 to get like these 15 pages fixed. And after I told him the whole thing, he said to me, "You know what?" He said, I realize you're probably paying that out of pocket, and I realize that you're probably in a jam, and I'm happy to do it for less. Now, I did not pay him less, but I'm going to be honest and tell you that just having him say to me, "I know the jam that you're in, and I
Mm-hmm.
empathize, and I'm going to help you get this fixed." Like, he went to the top of my notary list tomorrow. I didn't pay him less. He didn't, he said it because he knew the situation I was in,
Right.
but that's the thing, right? We're sort of all in this together. There have been
Together.
many times where I have paid out of pocket to close a loan because it wasn't anyone's fault. People think all the time, oh, if a notary doesn't sign, if a sign doesn't close completely, right? They cancel in the middle. They don't want to finish signing. Notaries always want to get paid. And I understand that because you've gone there and you've got paper.
Right.
But the thing is, when loans don't close, no one gets paid. So that
Correct.
money comes out of someone's pocket. And you know whose pocket it comes out of? Me as a signing company. I end up paying the notary to make sure that they're maybe not wholly compensated, but there's something in there for them. I don't get any money from the lender or the title company because they didn't get any money either. The loan didn't close. So
right.
The thing about it is I've never had a notary say to me, hey, no, I'll take less from you. But I have had notaries who have been understanding of a situation that I've been in and realized that I was coming out of pocket to pay them and have been more than happy to work with me. And not give me a difficult time about it, right? They're understanding. And the thing about that is a good business owner, and I say this even for me, when I pay on behalf of my client for things that aren't really my fault, but I do it because I appreciate their business. And I know by going the extra mile, I'm going to continue to get all their work, right? So when you talk about like a difficult client or a long signing, if you do 10 signings for someone and they all go smoothly and they all take 30 minutes and there's no problem, and you have one that went an hour and a half, for me, asking for more money for that seems like, but I just gave you 10 signings and they all went well and they were quick and no issues, right? We're always going to have somebody that's difficult. Now, if I gave you 10 signings and they were all difficult and they were a problem that took forever, then you need to figure down the road, do I still work for that client? Do I still take their work? Or do I ask for money knowing it's always a problem? But at the end of your month, there should be a wash in there, right? Like for the few that were really difficult, you made it up for the ones that people were like, I don't want to read it. I don't care what it says. Just hand it to me. I'm going to sign you, notarize, and leave.
And you save 45 minutes on your time or what have you. Yeah. Now, and the reason why I asked that question is because a lot of notaries, it keeps coming up every 5 to 7 months that, well, there's notaries out here. The reason why we can't get the fees that we want because you notaries keep taking lower fees. Sort of what we lose. But this is what I've concluded. And because of your experience, I think you could probably help me understand whether or not I'm thinking it correctly. I don't believe that there's a notary with real common sense that when an order comes out through a signing service for any dollar amount, now they know other notaries are also trying to get that same order, but I don't think there's a notary that says, oh, I know I'm going to beat Griff on getting that order by telling them I'll do it for less. I don't think that. But where I think the issue comes in at is in the direct field. Because if I'm working for Marcy and they know that Marcy's paying me $125 and they really want to get in with Marcy, well, Marcy, I could save you some money and do it for $100 or less. And from what I'm seeing is that's where some of the notaries, because some of them are being told to market themselves and say, when you go to a direct client, donate your time for free, do a couple of signings for free, 3 to 10 signings for free. So I'm like, if you've trained somebody who's never been in business before to give their stuff away for free, their condition is, well, I'll take whatever you give me. And if you have some of those signing companies or really title companies, it's like, oh, goody. Okay, sure, Mary, come on in here for $60 when I normally pay $125 or $150. No problem. And that's when they say, well, notaries, that's what they want to get paid. In all honesty, I don't think so, but they want to get the opportunity, so they're willing to take less. They're willing, because it's hard to call. Okay, I can't just call Marcy and say, hey, I'll take less, because by the time I do that, she answers the phone, the order's gone. Because Marcy is like, I'm willing to pay you $115. Why would you sit here and call me and say you'll do it for $85? That don't make sense at all. And then am I going to get the same quality of work if you're willing to diminish your worth? So, and see, this is why I don't understand, because people say, well, pay me what I'm worth. But then you have folk teaching notaries to go in and undercut what they have taught them. So that's what I'm thinking. Now, the bigger issue. Well, what are your thoughts on that before I answer the next question?
Yeah, I'm going to say that would hold no sway with me. I'm not going to reduce your fee to bring someone on to take away from notaries who've been with me the whole time. So this is probably an unpopular opinion, but anyone who's reached out to me, I've kind of said to them, the market is slow. I've had notaries who've been with me for years. Like, I am loyal to them. So the work is going to go to them first. And I think that you can, even for you, we've exchanged emails, 11:30 midnight sometimes about work that I have, because I try to give it to my notaries that I can work with first, right? You've been with me this whole time. I know how you operate. I probably wouldn't throw over a loyal notary that I've had all this time for someone that I haven't. So that's the first piece of the puzzle for me. The second piece is that when we talk about knowing your worth, I always find it fascinating that I'll send an email out to my crew and I'll be like, hey, I've seen a lot of these errors lately, right? And inevitably one person will come back and say, oh, well, you get what you pay for. And it makes me a little nutty, because what you take that job for, whether it's $50 or $150, you still should be doing a good job. And I know this is also not remembered very well, but it really isn't about me. Like, you're not getting back at me by not doing a good job and not fixing your mistakes, right? You're hurting the borrower. You're hurting the signer or the buyer. Like, we are public servants. We have a fiduciary responsibility, right? When we take on these loan signings or general notary work, not to harm these individuals. And I'm always appalled, like in the instance of that notary who wouldn't go back and help that buyer. They didn't close on their house for 10 days later. 10 days. And I had to pay all these extra expenses out of my pocket to cover all the extra interest the seller had to pay because this notary didn't do a good job for me. Okay, so you got back at me for whatever reason. Like, you don't care that I'm the signing company and I had to pay all this for you. What about that person who wanted to move in their house, who had a U-Haul ready, who had their kids move? Like, I don't understand any of that. So when we talk about pay me what I'm worth, your worth to me is how you see yourself and your business, right? We are all here to make money, but when we talk about that 6-figure mark, I'm going to tell you the notaries who are only chasing that 6 figures are not the same as the notaries who make 6 figures because they're doing the right thing. Okay. It's not the same for me. And so for me, that whole worth thing really boils down to, how do you see yourself in your business? How do you operate your business? How do you feel about that buyer or borrower or signer? Do you go out of your way to make sure that they're getting a good experience? Is it about you, right? Do you change the time because it's more convenient for you? I've had notaries be like, well, that's not a convenient time for me. Well, then why did you take the signing? Like, it's set in the order, right? It's 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. So for me, I understand the idea behind it and why people say it. And again, how you operate your business, what your expenses are, what you want your profit margin to be are up to you. But not everybody needs to walk away with $100 for a signing as profit. Some people, I had a notary who did it part-time. He was older, in his 70s, and he did it on the side. I think minimum wage was like $15 in his state. And he was telling me, if I make $25 at the end of my signing, I'm happy because it's more than minimum wage and more than I would have had.
Yeah, that's how some people are.
And who am I to say anything about that? That's not right. I can't tell him how to run his business. So I think it's a kind of a complicated situation, but it really does boil down to the concern about what you're doing in your business versus the concern about what everybody else is doing in their business.
And one thing that I believe when you talk about customer service, and this is something that clicked into my head about a week ago, I was in Clubhouse, and I'm in Clubhouse always fussing and stirring up stuff. And a lot of people's talking about how they're like, well, this is the way I like to offer customer service. And about 3 days later, I started thinking about that. And I said, here's the real question. Is the customer service that I'm offering what the customer needs at that time? Because I'm willing to offer this. I'm willing to go to this extreme. But then I get into a situation where, wait a minute, the customer doesn't need that. What the customer actually needs is for me to stop what I'm doing and let them finish feeding their child. Sometimes, are you willing to do that? Knowing that you got another signing and you know you might be working with a signing company that is, Marcy's not like that, but other companies are like, 30 minutes in, are you done? Are you about done? And you know
There's your
this company's,
completion report. Yep.
yeah. And you know that, okay, and you see, and that's why I did a video called Read the Room, and you see that, okay, I went to the guy was feeding his daughter some pancakes in the middle of the afternoon. And I could tell on his face, he was like, I really need to get her fed because if I don't, she's going to tear stuff up. I said, sir, go on and feed your daughter. So while he was feeding her, you know what I started doing? I started going through doing my doc prep because I hadn't had a chance. So I started pre-filling out the notarial area, not signing or stamping. Stop doing that, y'all. But I started pre-filling the areas, marking stuff, paper clipping, putting my little arrows on because I didn't have time. So while he was doing that with her, I took advantage of it to be productive. And you know what? The signing went smooth. And he had, because I'll be honest, some people you come in, and it's just sometimes a man thing, you know, man to man. It's like they look at me, older guy, like, oh, you're just a notary, huh? But when they see that I have compassion and understanding of where they're at, I've even been in situations where the dad is like, I'm tired of these kids, boy, can't y'all wait till the notary leave. And I just look at them, I said, go do your dad thing. Mm-hmm. And they look at me like, huh? I said, go do your dad thing. I'm good.
Yeah.
And they'll go have a talk with the kids, straighten them up. See, can you offer that kind of customer service? Are you cognizant that sometimes they need to know that it's okay. One guy had to go spank his kid. One guy had a couple of talk. Or if the phone call comes in, feel free to go ahead and answer that. Now, yes, I know signing companies say, don't do this, don't do that. But when you're in there and you see a person constantly looking back at their phone, constantly looking down every 2 seconds, maybe they're waiting for an important phone call.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've seen the phone will be on silent and the phone will ring. And of course, they don't hear it. And I see it says, Mom. I say, oh, sir, excuse me. I think your mom is calling. They appreciate that.
They do. They do.
Now,
and I'm going to say that you're this is someone who I say this all the time. Like a member just popped up actually on my Facebook where I was talking about when I did a signing, and a little girl thought I was her babysitter for the next night, right, for date night. And she had to show me her bedroom and her playroom and what we're going to do. And no matter how many times I told her I wasn't the babysitter, she wanted to show me. And so it took 15 minutes out of my day, and it was what it was. But I agree with you. And here's the thing about in person, right? We talk about Ron versus in person. The nice thing about in person is that you truly get to one-on-one have a relationship. And I can't tell you how many times I have had people remember me and call me later on for general notary work who gave my name to someone else because of that. And I think that's what we forget. It doesn't matter that I, as a signing company, sent you out there. I would never tell a notary if a signer called them and said, hey, I have, a power of attorney. Can you come notarize it? Not to go. I mean, if it's different if you're trying to take my client away, but for those kinds of things, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Right. And that's, I think what we're forgetting is that we're building relationships here with the signing company, with the title company, with the lender, right? I have lots of title companies and lenders who will ask me for a very specific notary every single time. And why is that? Because their signer went back and said to them, this notary was amazing. I love this notary. They did a great job. And I'm happy with that because the work then comes to me and I can feed the work to you, right? So it's a win-win for all of us. And I get it. There are times where you don't have time in your schedule. There have been times where I said to the person, I see that you got a lot going on here. Do you want me to leave? I can do my next signing real quick and come back in an hour. And they've been like, that would be amazing. Thank you. Right. Or they're like, I need to get my kids to bed. Could you come back in 2 hours? Okay, whatever. Right. I can go shopping or to the bank or run errands or whatever I need to do. I think that's a good point that you make. Customer service for them is what's important, not for us, unless of course it's something that's illegal or they're asking for to do. But I mean, in the sphere of things, reading the room is critical, I think.
And that's what, and I always tell notaries when you come to the place, if I come in there and I see everybody with their shoes off, do you want me to take my shoes off?
Sure.
I come in there and I see a whole pile of daggone mountain of shoes. You need me to take my shoes off? Okay, cool. Where do you want me to be at? Because sometimes notaries just walk in and they just sit. You got to pay attention. Okay, you got this nice dining room table with this fancy cutlery on it and all of that stuff. Where do you want me at, sir? Where you at, man? There's been times where I've gone up and I'm seeing them bringing groceries in. I help them with that because see, I keep sharing with notaries. I, I know that either the signing company and or the title company will send them a survey and ask, how was the notary? I want them to remember me in the best light possible.
Hmm.
Now, they may not say, Griff helped me with 3 cases of beer, bringing them in the house, or 2 kegs and took them around and popped, and got them all primed for my pool party. They may not say exactly, but they'll say the notary was great. That's all I want them to do is say the notary was great. He was wonderful. Yes. I've held babies. I played with dogs, all kinds of stuff. I went to one lady's house. She was like, sweetheart, it was an older lady. She was like, sweetheart, I need to walk my dog. I said, ma'am, you go ahead and walk your dog. I'm gonna sit here on the porch. See, you common sense of don't say, okay, well, I go. No, don't go inside their house. You sit your little hind paws on their porch. You wait. They walked up. Would you like me to walk with you, ma'am? That's the kind of stuff that they need from us. Now, if you're afraid of dogs or got issues with pets, I get that. But this is what will separate you from the rest of them
100%.
all the time. And again, they may not specifically say, I like Grip because he walked with me while I was walking my dog. Let's just say one time the lady was bragging about her granddaughter and how much of an artist she was. So at the end of the signing, I said, tell your granddaughter to come out here. I want to see. The granddaughter came out, and I spent like 10 minutes watching her show me her artwork and all of this kind of stuff and everything. And then I shared with her some things because my son, he's in the art. And I was telling her, where she can go get some art crafts and things of that nature. That's the question becomes this here. Are you as a notary willing to give that level of customer service? Can you recognize that somebody needs that? That's the thing. Now, here's the big question that everybody got.
All right. Tell me.
How can a brand new notary, signing agent, now he's in Texas, get any work if all they want is experienced notaries? Now, I'm going to give my answer, and you tell me whether I'm right or wrong.
Okay.
Now, my answer to this is simply have the mindset of next man up, meaning if you see an order from them, I don't care what it is, and of course, I know the distance sometimes, but if it's HELOC, loan app, trailing docs, if you see something that says 2 or 3 pages, you need to say yes so that they can have a feel of whether or not they can trust you with doing something. Because the signing companies, what I realized, and I wish I could remember which one that told me, but they said, we remember when you sit there and say no to the 50, no to the 65, no to the 85, and then all of a sudden it hits 125 and you trying to tear the phone up to get that order. We remember that. So I think you can't, especially if you're just coming in now, you can't force these companies who have been burnt, because that's another thing we need to talk about. The companies who have been burnt, they're like, okay, we got to put our fences up, our guard up. And we know some of y'all have been trained by some people who aren't necessarily training y'all right. And we have a history of being burnt by people in that category. So we got to be careful. But when they offer an order, even though it might just be $30, even though it might be $20, if you can do it and do it well, and then give the good customer service that I just talked about, that's going to make that signing company owner have a peace of mind and say, okay, I took a chance on this notary, and apparently they got a good personality, they're good with the clients. Okay, because I got this contract coming down that I might get an extra 30 reverse mortgages a month with seniors, and I need people that can be pleasant and kind to them. But if you can show that you can be pleasant and kind on a $20 order, a $50 order, I'm pretty sure you can be the same on a 125, 150, or whatever. Now, the floor is yours.
So, like I said, for me, right, I have loyalty to my notaries who've been around here for a while. They're my go-to notaries. But they were new to me at one point as well, right? So that's saying something here. I'm going to say that if you had asked me maybe 2 years ago, my answer would have been a little different than today, but I'm going to tell you my today answer. Like I said, get a few dozen emails every single week of notaries who want to sign up for me. And I know where they got their training because it is a template email that says to me, hey, I double check everything. I know, why I have to. I can scan back right away. I correct mistakes, as soon as possible. I don't double book. They say all the things. And so sometimes when I tell a notary horror story, which maybe I'll do those in October for Halloween, because they're pretty interesting and fun.
Yeah.
Notaries will say to me, well, why did you use that notary? Well, on paper, y'all sort of look the same. And I'm not being mean about that. I'm being honest. If you have your NNA certification, you got a background check that's clean, you have insurance, right? You have your commission and all of the good stuff. And we talk on the phone and you seem like a normal person who can answer my questions, then I'm hopeful that the signing is going to go well. But I'm not there. So I don't know. So sending me an email isn't going to get you on my list of people to use, right? It's not. But I'm going to say that I got an email the other day from someone, and this is going to go back to customer service. This person sent me an email, and in it he said, I'm a newer notary, and this is my experience, and I want to tell you about a situation that I handled for another company because this truly emulates the kind of notary that I am. And what he said was, it was a buyer side package, and the person the next day was leaving the country for like 2 weeks, and he was worried because he was newer that there might be a mistake. So he scanned the package back with his mobile scanner from the signing and then told the title company he would wait for approval. Apparently it took the title company and the lender like 6 hours to get back to him. And in that 6 hours, he stayed with that signer and helped this man pack for his impending trip out of the country. Now, my expectation is not that you wait 6 hours for a closing because it's the first signing. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying was, what he got my attention about was that he was thoughtful enough to know that story would intrigue me to put him on a list that I don't put everybody on. And he went out of his way. They didn't ask for scan backs. They didn't ask I did that for him. He had enough thought to say, well, this man's leaving, and what if I made a mistake? And I'm not 100% confident maybe in my ability, or I want to make sure it's okay for this man, and did all of that on his own. Initiative is so important for me as well, right? Every state is a little bit different. New York, we have all these extra documents for deeds and things. Sometimes the company is an out-of-state company. They don't know they need a supporting document. I've had notaries go to closing and come back, and I'll say, well, didn't you notice that wasn't in there with the deed? And they'll say, I knew, but I didn't say anything. But then I'll have other notaries who will call me and be like, hey, Marcy, did you realize this form wasn't in here? And they won't be able to record the document without it. Those are the notaries that are my go-tos, right? They catch listen, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes too. They catch my mistakes. They catch the title company mistakes. They go out of the way. And I know that you need to get in the door, but that's how you get in the door. Tell me a unique story. Tell me how you're going to handle a difficult situation. You don't need to send me cookies. I don't really need those. You don't need to send me presents or things like that. I do have a notary who goes on vacation once a year, and she sends me postcards from where she is, which I don't know if she's like, hey, I'm gone, or hey, look at me, kind of a jealousy thing, but I love them anyway. Staying top of mind is helpful. Putting yourself in a position to be helpful. I love notaries who answer back when I send a text and say, hey, Marcy, I'm not available today at 2, but I can do it at 3 or 4 or 7. There are times where I can't change the time, but there are times where I can change the time. And if you say no off the bat, I'm not probably going to come back to talk to you. I'm going to go to the person who has some flexibility, right? I mean, that's the thing. If you tell me alternatives, or, I call you and say, hey, I have a signing on this day and this time, and I know it's like 75 miles away from you. Like, can you tell me, well, can we do this? And you have a suggestion for me. Well, what if they meet me like a quarter of the way, Marcy, or I can do this, or we can work it out that way. Or sometimes I get these situations where they start off as one signing and they end up being split signings because again, I don't know someone dropped the ball somewhere. And I know we want to blame the signing company, but sometimes I don't know either. Like, I'm the last one to know what's going on as well. I have notaries who are like, hey, no problem, Marcy. I'll run out and pick up this from that place, or I can meet that person at that time. Being accommodating is so important. But I think that the most important piece of this is knowing that we're on the same side, right? We really are on the same side. And I struggle sometimes when I see in the forums notaries say these things. And I'll be honest, I'm going to say this as well. We've put notaries on the do not use list who have never worked for me based on what they've said on social media. I'm going to be 100% honest about that.
I was going to ask you about that because
putting it out here is the end. Yeah. I have.
Marcy, oh my goodness. I've been telling notaries for the longest. I said, one, there are snitches out there. There, from a competitive standpoint, there are notaries out there that will bait other notaries into saying things, and then they will screenshot what you said and say, hey, Marcy, hey, Alice, hey, Craig, look what these notaries are saying.
I don't take that, but I
know, but there's some that do. But then some y'all are in there and y'all see what they're saying.
There. If you're on there, and I can't tell how many times I see someone post a document and they're like, hey, I don't know where to sign. And it's got all the signers' information on it. You're probably on my do not use list. I know everyone's like, hey, it's an honest mistake, but that's not an honest mistake for me. I'm going to be honest. Like, the first rule is protecting someone's personal information. And that is a huge concern for me. That will put you on do not list. Outright saying something that is concerning to me about what you did at a signing or what happened. I had a woman, she deleted her comment, but we were talking about, going in areas that were what she considered dangerous. Right. And she came out and said, well, I charge more in those areas. Right. And I said to her, well, isn't that sort of discrimination? Because, some areas are poverty stricken. Right. And we talk about redlining and mortgage and all of that. You can certainly say no, but charging more because of the zip code, that's a tough haul for me. And that's tough for some people to swallow. So I would be uncomfortable using an individual who maybe she didn't mean it that way, but she certainly put herself out there that way. And I'm going to say, I'm sure there are notaries who see me post on social media and are like, that woman's, she's a little vocal. We don't want to work for her either. And that's okay too. I'm going to say also, and it's not just me, I know there are other companies who have removed notaries from their list because of the way they talk about title companies and signing companies on social media. I'm going to tell this quick story and then we'll go on to the next question. I once had a national multi-million-dollar title company hire me. And he said to me when we first got hired, I had another signing company I worked with and it was a bad experience. And I probably should have sort of known from there what the experience was going to be like because it wasn't a good one. What ended up happening was we were going right along. They were paying me and all of a sudden they stopped paying me. And the thing about signing companies is that I don't wait to get paid to pay you. I'm on a pay schedule. So I pay you and then when money comes in, it comes in. So we have gone and paid all of these notaries. And when I asked him, hey, where's our money? We haven't been paid. They came back with, well, we paid your notaries already. And I said, well, that's not how this works. You pay me and then I pay my notaries, which was funny because none of the notaries who had been double paid said anything to me, but that's another topic altogether. Right. So I said to him, well, that was your mistake, right? You're still going to have to pay me because I've laid out all this money to the notaries. And he called me screaming on the phone. And what he said was, after he called me a moron, he said to me, I know how this is going to end. I know how you notaries are. You're going to hang up the phone and go post about me in all the forums. And I was like, I'm really not going to post about you in all the forums. And I'm not going to say who you are, but I'm certainly going to tell the story going forward so that notaries aren't the only ones who don't get paid. Signing companies don't get paid sometimes either. Right. But there's that perception, right, of how the forums operate. And that's the thing about being in the forums. If you're going to say stuff in there, know that signing companies, title companies, lenders. I've had lenders say to me, we put so-and-so on the do not use list. And because we were in this group and saw them say whatever. And I'm like, oh, what am I going to say? Right. You can work with who you want and they can work with who they want. So just use discretion, right? I'm not saying that you should change how you feel or what you say, but know that when you put stuff out there, that it does put you in a position to be removed from someone's list.
Yeah, and that's why, because I know I can sound aggressive when people come to my YouTube channel and I'm dealing with stuff and pointing out. And I tell people all the time, the reason why I act the way I do on YouTube and the topics that I bring out and the stuff that I say is I'm trying to draw out the truth, because there are a lot of people who are saying one thing, but they're not actually qualifying what they're saying. They're just saying, you know, we need to get paid this. And I'm like, okay, why? Why? Because from a business standpoint, I'm offering you this. You said you need to get paid that. When I look at what you have to do as a notary versus what the title, what the lender, and the hours that they spend with the client doing this, that, and the other, and you're saying you want to be paid just as much. Okay, where's the justification for that? You know, I'm not going to say that you can't get paid that. It's just that from a business standpoint,
Sure.
when you tell a company, pay me more than what you said you was going to pay me, that person who you're talking to is not more than likely the owner. That's the scheduler. And that scheduler or that post closer or whoever, they're like, okay, my boss told me that this is the fee for this. And now you're telling me you want more. I got to have a darn good reason when I go and talk to Marcy and say, Miss Marcy, okay. And I always say Miss Marcy because I keep messing up the last name. Miss T, and I have my chiropractor. He's Dr. T because his last name is, I can't even pronounce his last
Marcy
name.
really
So we just call him Dr. T. But I'll be like, hey, Marcy, look, this notary Craig says that he'll do the order, but he wants 150. And I know you told me that the fee for this one is 95. You got to give them a darn good reason to do it. And then let's just say two things you have to do. Hopefully the second one you won't, but the first thing is you got to be error free.
Sure.
On that, because now let's just say Marcy says, okay, Griff, pay him 150. Since you believe in this notary so much, pay him 150. They mess it up. You know who paycheck is coming out of? It's coming out of yours. A business owner can do that. This is what she can do. That be like, okay, you know what? We're gonna take a chance. Mm-hmm. Now, you, the notary, you cannot embarrass that scheduler by jacking the order up, by showing up late, not at all. Now, if you do make a mistake, that scheduler may be able to get you before it gets to Marcy and say, go fix this. Mm-hmm. You better go fix it. Because the moment you say, I ain't fixing it, now you are, maybe I'm wrong in this thought, but to me, at that point, you just told them, give me more money. They fought for you to get more money. You screwed it up. And now to me, you're putting that scheduler's job at risk because they're like, okay, Marcy, like, okay, you're just, I can't have you. You're costing me money. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. And I'm going to say too, I'm going to backtrack a minute. If you're out there posting because someone didn't pay you, I understand that. I am 100% in agreement that for companies who don't pay their notaries, legitimately don't pay their notaries, that information should be shared. So I'm not saying that. I'll make sure I put that out there, right? That's important. But I also would say that you should have documentation behind it, because I can't tell you how many times a notary reaches out to me and be like, you didn't pay me, and then screams at me, and I send them a copy of the, cash check, and they've already hurt our relationship. So be aware of that. But back to this piece. Here's the thing about asking for more money. There are circumstances that warrant it. If I sent you a package, you printed that entire package, and I send you a revised package, you should get more money. You printed twice. If the closing location is XYZ, and now we find out it's 30 or 40 minutes further from you, I understand that. That's something that I can accommodate. And I certainly can work with the lender to figure it out. And if I can't, then I probably would have to reassign it. It really depends on the set of circumstances, right? Mm-hmm. If you take a signing for me for more money and it's an hour away, I always tell the notary, I don't mind paying that if you're going an hour away, but you're going to have to go back an hour if you make a mistake, right? And there becomes some of the things that you have to figure out in your business. Am I willing to drive an hour and a half away? And then if there's an error or problem that I made, go back and fix it, right? I'm not
Right.
expecting you to do that for me, but for them. And like I said, I don't work with a lot of notaries who nickel and dime me. I really honestly don't. I say I pay fairly, and the way I figure that is I pay what I would take a job for. And that's how I operate my business, right? If I would do it for that amount of money, I would take it. So I always laugh when notaries who work for me complain about the fee, and then they open their own signing companies, and then I see what they pay their notaries, and I'm like, this is silliness. That's not what it's right
now. See that
so
right?
There's that. I know there's a listen, like I said, not everyone's a great signing company. Not everyone operates with integrity or honesty. So I understand all of that. I guess the point I'm making is that, again, like we talked about before, I think if it's a one-off sometimes, even for me with my customers, my fee is my fee. I don't charge extra for faxing or dropping something off or going. I really don't. Like I try to do the best for my customers, and that's why they come back to me all the time. And I'm at the top of their list in my area. So for me, that quantity makes a big difference, right? If by spending an extra half an hour at one signing brings me 10 more orders behind it, well, why wouldn't I do that? But not every notary thinks that. So if you've ever done a commercial loan for me, I know you have, like I pay somewhere between, $275 to $300 for commercial loans if it's in person. They aren't really big packages anymore. They're less than 100 pages normally. I ask you to carve out 2 hours of your time. They never take 2 hours. They always take about an hour. And I have a notary who was doing all of mine in her area, and she was doing them all in less than an hour, which $275 or $300 for 100 pages is, I think, for me, decent money. But I mean, everybody's different, right? Depends on how you feel about it. And this last closing last week, there were a whole bunch of issues, not because of her, not because being a lender, and that signing took 2.5 hours. And she came back and said, can you pay me more? And I said, well, there's no more to pay you, right? Like I took 25%, and I get that it took a long time, and I appreciate that you stayed there for that, but you did the previous 10 for just an hour, right? You made out really well with those.
You've already made out. Yeah.
Sort of. I said, so,
you've made out.
I've never used that 2 hours, right? We've never had to. So today I had to use a little extra, and I get it. It's a pain and it didn't go well, but I certainly appreciate your being there. But unfortunately, like I just don't have the money to give you. And she said to me, well, just take me off your list. I don't work for you anymore. And that's fine. You have that prerogative. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what I'm saying is that it doesn't make sense to me from a business owner point of view, but that you get all of my work in one area. Typically it's fairly decent pay, and one goes off the rails a little bit and you're like, hey, I'm done with you. And that's fine if that's how you run your business. But that's why signing companies and title companies don't always feel great about working with notaries, that kind of thing. Like we try to do the best that we can. And there are times where it's not anyone's fault if the borrower or something happened or an underwriting issue. Like, I don't know. There are so many things that happen in the mortgage lending real estate world that we don't always have control over. It's that flexibility piece that's super important. It's that being accommodating, right?
Now, what I've learned is that this is my synopsis. The reason why signing companies I would say the reason why signing companies are forced to pay lower is because the lender is tired of having 30% of the orders they give to a particular signing company come back with issues. And that's what I've concluded, is that the lender can, because see, this is where people don't understand business. The lenders, or let's just say you don't even get to the lender point, it's at the title company. The title says, Marcy, look, okay, right now we see about 30% of the orders we give you each month are coming back with issues. You need to get this fixed with these notaries, or we're going to permanently drop your fee down to this. They have every right to do that because there's a contract between the signing company and the title company. And if you're not meeting your obligation to that, yes, you're using independent contractors, and hopefully the independent contractors take this business serious to do that. Then the signing company is like, we got to drop our fees.
Sometimes,
sometimes it happens because what I got coming in just got cut, and that's where the problem comes in at. And I understand notaries don't know that. And the reason why is because nobody is talking and teaching that except for me. I'm giving myself a pat on the back because I've realized that over the years is that from what I've heard from notaries, and one particular signing company told me, they said, we got stuff out there in Indiana that's very rural and we're paying them like $300 to go do it. And they keep coming back with errors.
Yeah.
And the scheduler told me straight up, and she was actually the first person that really gave me a shot just before I started doing closings with you. And she said, we not paying for errors. So we dropped their fee down. And I was like, whoa. She said, so that's when I started doing those videos about y'all need to stop cutting up and start doing right, which then leads into the next question about I know a lot of people talk about the verbiage of what we say about the documents, the who and the what and the where and the why, and pointing to this and that and the other. But over the last 5 years, or these first 5 years of me being in business, what I keep hearing from signing company owners, as well as the schedulers and anybody who will answer me if I ask them the question, the biggest issue that they're having is that the notaries don't know how to properly notarize documents.
100%.
That is where the issue is.
100%.
It's not about
Nope.
whether you can sit here and give a synopsis of
Nope. ...
It's not about, well, here's the title. This here is such and such document, and here's what this means. That's not where the issue comes at, because as Marcy said earlier, she's not there with you. So technically, she does not know whether you're saying or not saying anything about the documents.
Mm-hmm.
But the report card is when they get the documents back and they see you've missed all of these initials. You didn't get them to date it. The instructions specifically said they have to sign the way their name is, and you did not ensure that. And then you didn't do your part in the notarial area. And she happened to look at 12 o'clock at night in a Facebook group and see the client that you just went to 6 hours earlier, their documents in Facebook talking about, what do I put in this notarial area?
All the time. Yeah, I'm going to tell you that's the number. It is. See, because here's the thing. You can call me from signing and we can talk about, hey, Marcy, I don't know what this document is, or they have this question, and I can walk you through a conversation. I cannot tell you how many times I get a package back, and sometimes they'll have the borrower's line, right? And they'll say seal at the end, right? It's an antiquated from way back in the day when people had seals, right? And so they would sign and put their little ink or whatever. How many notaries will stamp on the borrower section? And I'm like, there's no notarial language. Or they'll sign the notary section, but they don't stamp it. And I'll be like, why didn't you apply your stamp? And they'll say, oh, it didn't say to apply my stamp.
It didn't say, right? It didn't say seal.
Didn't have any idea. That's super common. So I'm going to tell you this because I think it ties into our last question a little bit too. I got this new client, like I said, in rural Georgia, and they were a referral, and we did 12 signings for them. And out of 12 signings, 11 packages came back with errors. And out of 11 packages, 10 of them had 10 or more errors in the package. 10 or more. And the last one was that one where the notary refused to go out and get it fixed. And then she didn't include the check that the signers had brought to closing, and no one could find that check, and it was a certified check, and we had to pay for a stop payment. It became a big deal. That was the last signing I did for that company. We were fired after that. And you know what? I don't blame them, because I wouldn't have kept me either, right? And it's not like they were all the same notary. Out of those 12 signings or 10 signings, there were 10 different notaries, right? That we had vetted and talked to and checked their credentials. And when we asked them, why is this not notarized? I had one notary who, like I talked about, there was seal at the end of the signer. She stamped over every single signature where it said seal throughout the entire package, including the note. And I was like, I don't understand where this came from. And what she said to me was, she said, well, I work for another signing company and they told me to do that. And I said, well, they're wrong. And you should know your state laws. If I told you to do that, right, you should have enough gumption to come back to me and say, hey, I can't do that in my state. I'm not doing it. And okay, they might or may not use you, but you still have a commission and you can still pay your mortgage next month, right?
Right.
This was a rash of horrible things that happened, and I got fired. And now I lost a customer and I lost money out of my pocket and, potential notaries down the road. And here's what happened with those guys. They decided they were going to start using notaries in-house, right? Because they couldn't trust the notaries that were on the outside. And that's what's going to happen here, right? In slower markets, people cut back. And it is cheaper to use your staff than it is to hire outside notaries. I had several companies who I worked with for years say, it's too slow, Marcy. From the top, they're saying we can't use you right now. We have to use our in-house notaries. And we can't come back to you till it gets busier. And what am I going to say? Okay, I understand that. I get that. We all are in the same boat here, right? But those kinds of mistakes, all that stuff that happens, there's a back end to what goes on, right? I lost a customer. That title company now has to accommodate. They went back and told my client that referred them what a horrible experience they had. My client called me and was like, I can't believe it. I've never heard anything like that about you guys. I refer you to everyone and everyone loves you. Yeah, I get it. It didn't go well, right? So there's a little bit of that too. Like, I think I'm not blaming the six-figure companies. I'm really trying not to, but there are so many articles out there and all of this CNBC and YouTube that people are like, hey, this is a great side gig or a hustle, which I hate using those words because it's so demeaning to what we do, that people jump in thinking it's a no big deal. I'm going to give you another quick example and we can move on. I had a notary who did a buyer side closing. It was on a Thursday in Florida. On Monday, we sent her a message saying, hey, this package didn't come back. It's not tracking. Do you have it? She ignored me all day, trying to get a hold of her. No email, no call, no texting, nothing. Finally, the next morning, she sent me a text and she said, oh, we had a horrible storm here. And the box that I dropped the package in was hit by lightning and destroyed. And now I don't know where this package is. So I'm at FedEx right now. So I said to her, okay, can you put me on speaker? Can I talk to the FedEx manager? And in the interim, I'm thinking to myself, well, I didn't hear about this big rash, horrible storm in Florida. I don't know what's going on there. So of course I Googled the weather, which was like light rain in this area, right? So I'm like, okay, this sounds like it's probably not true. So now back and forth, she won't answer any emails. She won't answer my phone call. She'll only answer by text. 2 days later, finally, because she won't tell me where she dropped the package. I've asked her repeatedly, can I have the location? I need to start a track on this package. Like, can you give me the information? No, I'm looking for it. No, I'm talking to the manager. No, I'm not sure what happened to it. Now we're on to Wednesday, right? Wednesday, she sent me a text and she says, well, I have the package. Can you send the label again? So I say to her, well, where was that package? Right? After I had threatened her, I said, listen, this is not going to go far, but I'm going to report you to your state. I'm going to report you to your insurance company. I'm going to file a claim against you for these documents and the credit report that I have to pay these people. I'm going to do all of these things, no matter where it gets me, because you won't help me find this person's package. And they can't move into their house without sealing the deal because it has to be recorded in this particular state. So she's like, I just need a label to send it back to you. And she says to me, there's no need to report me. I have your package and I'm going to ship it back. And she said to me, so I know you think I'm a horrible notary. And I said, well, to be honest with you, I don't think that you should be a notary. There it is. We'll put it out there. If you don't care about the person that you're notarizing for, and you're not being helpful, and you're obviously lying to me, because if you won't answer me by email and you won't answer my phone calls and you'll only text me and you won't tell me where I dropped that package, that is an indication to me that you're not being honest. And here's where I'm going with the story. Her last remark to me was, you don't need to report me. I can just give up my commission. I don't really care. I just took the step to do something on the side, and I guess it's not working out for me.
And that is the sentiment that I keep hearing out there. And then you have those individuals who then slide over to tell me, I'm a train now. I'm gonna educate you. I'm gonna teach you that. I'm gonna teach you that. I'm gonna say this. Maybe, see, in my youngest son did gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the USA Gymnastics site, the main one, I think if you scroll at the bottom, somewhere on their site, there's a link. As a matter of fact, in this video, I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna find it and put it on there so y'all can see for yourself. There's a link that shows you everybody who's banned from the sport. You hear me? That's how serious the USA Gymnastics takes this. And this is before that Larry Nassar stuff with the girls and all of that. They did stuff or whatever, and they have been banned, and they have a list of everybody. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about everybody, even all the way back to the 70s, whenever, that you have been banned, that you cannot compete in gymnastics. Maybe that needs to happen for some of these highly egregious notary issues. That, in other words, okay, you did this, we talked to the state like, yeah, here you go. Because notaries need to know this person who's training you, they did these bad things, or they did something bad to the point to where their own state don't want to have jack to do with them. And you probably need to hold on to your dollars a little bit tighter rather than giving them money, because all they're doing is taking your money, but they're not really putting you in the best position for notary knowledge. And this is why I'm trying to get notaries to understand you got to take responsibility. Most people are coming into this business, and after about 3 to 6 months, they realize, I don't want to do what Griff does. What does Griff do right now? It's crazy. It's supposed to be slow. I'm doing 60 to 70 closings a month. I got, if I'm not mistaken, I have this week from Sunday through Friday, I think I got 20.
Mm-hmm.
I got 5 on Friday. I had 5 yesterday, and I had 4 today, and then it dropped down to 2 because there was some cancellations and stuff. But stuff is coming, going, and I'm like, okay, right now, this week, I'm floating between 18 and 20. And I'm sitting here, and then there are people like, nah, I don't want to do all that, Griff. That's too much. So they want to do all this other stuff. And I've always said the way people market this business determines how they come into it. Sure. And if you get on TikTok and YouTube and other places, they market the business as you can set your own schedule. You can just do it whenever you want.
Right.
If you got a printer and you got a stamp, and you can just go and just do your thing, and they're going to pay you 400 and some bucks, and it's like, and then the notary's front, why I'm not getting that money, Griff? I done took 5 trainings. Why they not hiring me? And I said, because you're not the notary they want. But I see the order come out for 50, and then it goes to 65, and then it goes to 85, and I keep saying I'm available, but they won't pick me. I said, well, one, depending on how you have your profile, if your profile is bland and they look at it and they're like, okay, you ain't telling us nothing. I say, so maybe you need to spruce it up. And I said, what you need to communicate is that you understand the loan closing process, not just that you won't. I tell people, say, yeah, let them know you won't double side print, things of that nature, but let them know that you understand in your own words what you're supposed to do as a notary. Because if you've at least taken Notary Essentials, the signing agent training course from the NNA, if you understand your state handbook and laws and all of that, you can communicate that. You don't need experience. You need knowledge to communicate that. And then they can, then from there, that person can say, okay, you know what? Let me give you a call and see. And the way I got with the very first time I did a closing with Ronnie for Unlimited Ink, he called, I didn't know what his requirements were. And matter of fact, maybe I did. I saw that he wanted $100,000 of E&O. I only had 50. I was like, I don't care. I'm gonna just say yes to it because it's on a Saturday and I can do it. And I need the money. And then he called me and he said, well, Stephen, I'm giving you a shot because you took some time to write your profile. He said, you got a very long profile. He said, Marcy, no, you got a very long profile, very detailed. And he said, and if you can take that kind of effort into trying to, maybe I should give you a chance. He said, you don't have the E&O insurance level that I want, but I'm gonna give you a shot. And he said, you got my number. If you have any problems, call me. I said, okay. I went, did the signing, and then he called me up And he looked, he said, yep, everything's good with the documents. And I've been doing closings for them ever since. Now
But
I
that's
have
my
different.
point, right?
Mhm.
That's the thing about those cattle call texts. There's a couple different reasons why you might not get picked. So let's be 100% honest. One is that your profile might not be filled out, or your documents might be expired, and I don't really want to chase you around for that. But the second thing is, and I like to be honest about this, is that just like you guys had a deadbeat signing group where you talk about signing companies in there, signing companies and title companies can rate you in your profile, and they can say about an experience they had with you. So it doesn't have to be experience with me. It can be experience with someone else. Now,
Right.
if they complained about you because you never fill out your completion report, I can live with that. I don't particularly care. But if you are on multiple, because I can see how many do not use lists you're on. There are notaries who are on 40, 50, 60 companies do not use list. Do I think all those 60 companies probably are just nitpicky? Probably not. There's probably a good reason for it. There is a notary in New York who is on 51 do not use lists, and he has at least 20 comments in his profile, and they all say the same thing. If you call this notary and he doesn't like you or he's unhappy with you, he's going to swear at you. He's going to cuss you out on the phone. Don't use him. Am I going to use that notary? Now, again, that might not be the case, but everyone who uses that platform, SnapDocs, signing order, right? We can all see what other companies say about you. If it's something old, like, hey, they missed a signature, there was a problem, I'm not going to worry about it. If it says that you do not show up for closing, if you were, a no call, no show, I'm probably not going to use you. I'm worried about that. If it says that you were rude to the signer or the title company or the lender and they complained about you, I probably won't use you. I can't take that chance, right? Even if it's not entirely true, that's the thing. I don't know that I can take the chance. And I'm going to say this is someone who actually is on a do not use list, because I think that it's important to put out here that sometimes you end up on a list that's not your fault. Years and years ago, I had to do a Wells Fargo loan modification, and I was on my way to signing, and there was a horrific accident, and everyone was at standstill. And even though I had left myself an extra 30 minutes, there was no getting around. There was no way for me to get around it. And so I had to call the signer, and his wife had only left 10 minutes to sign from the time that she had assigned to go to work. And obviously I couldn't make it there in time. So I offered to go to her place of business to meet her later. And they were super unhappy about the whole thing. They were like, no, like, you should have been here when you said you were going to be here. And they told Wells Fargo loan modification, who in turn were like, we have to put you on our do not use list. We don't have a choice. Okay. I mean, nothing I can do about it, right? It was out of my set of circumstances, and I feel like you should be more forgiving, but there it is. So I'm going to say this. If you end up on a do not use list, it isn't always really your fault. Sometimes things happen, and I've seen it happen with notaries that I've used too. So please don't think that that's the case. Like, here we are. But there are some times where, like I said, there are multiple complaints about the same notary, and it's the same thing in everyone's complaint. I have to believe if 5 or 10 or 15 companies are saying the same thing about you, then I'm probably not going to use you, right? It's just the way that it is. And so if you think we don't know about that, we do. I used to work for a title company that had a list of, oh my God, maybe 1,000 or more do not use notaries. And they used 8 different signing companies for their work. They're a national mortgage banker. And that list went to all 8 signing companies. None of us could use those notaries. So your information just gets shared, right? Like you share, right? And I know everyone gets mad about this, and they're like, well, signing companies, title companies should have shouldn't be able to rate us, and we can't explain ourselves. Okay, but we feel the same way, right? When you throw us in a group and call us a deadbeat, you haven't given me the opportunity to explain myself either, or maybe tell you my side of the story. It goes both ways. Having said that, good companies will really take it with a grain of salt, right? And I'm not out there running my mouth to all these other companies saying, hey, if you use so-and-so, that's not the case. Although I have friends who own signing companies who will call me and say, hey, do you have a referral in this place? And I think that that's the next important part. I refer a lot of work out directly to my notaries. When I get general notary work, apostilles, things that I don't do and I don't want to do, I don't want to vendor out, I send it right to them. I think I've vendored out some Ron work to you that
Yes, you have.
I don't want anything to do with. It's not involving me. Like, here you go, take it. I'm happy to give it to someone that I know. So I think that there's, like I said, there's this, it's not an us versus them kind of thing. But if you're never getting that, no matter how they're going, and you're saying that there's, they're going over you, there's probably a reason for it. And I think that you should probably ask. And if you were to ask me, hey, Marcy, I did all this work for you and now I don't, what happened? I'm probably going to tell you why you're on my do not use list. Now, I will say that backfires half the time, because the notary then is angry and it becomes this he said, she said thing. But I also believe that if you really want to know and you want to correct what happened, and let's be honest, here's the thing about me. It takes a lot to go on my do not use list. It really does. Like, you have to really do something egregious for me to say, you have to like not show up for a closing, right? Or lie to me. If you change the time of a signing and don't talk to me about it, and then you tell me, oh, the borrower couldn't do it and whatever. And then I talk to the borrower and the borrower says, well, your notary.
He will call the borrower to verify.
Yeah, I just had this. She said, well, the borrower couldn't do it, so we changed the day and time. I go, first of all, you definitely can't change the day and time. And she goes, oh yeah, we're not going to do it till tomorrow. And when I called the borrower, he said, well, she wanted me to drop. Now, this notary negotiated for a bigger fee because she had to drive an extra distance. And then she called the signer and said, you're going to have to meet me 2 towns closer to where I am. And he said, I can't meet you today. I guess I can meet you tomorrow. So she changed the date and time to the next day. Okay, she went on my do not use list, right? First, you negotiate a larger fee from me because you're going a distance. Then you make the man want to drive to you and you change the day and time. Like, those are the things that put you on me, particularly my do not use list. If you are rude to my customer, if you are rude to a signer, and I don't really care what the circumstances are. I know that sounds horrible, but I've been with rude people before. I have a job to do, right? The job isn't just dealing with people who are nice and pleasant. Sometimes they're unfriendly, unhappy, miserable people. As long as they're not abusive, right? Or violent or physical, you just want to be rude. I don't care. I'm going to sign your papers and I'm going to go. And then it's a good story for later on down the road, right? But that's sort of how I feel about, this idea of, and again, you don't have to work for me and I don't have to work for you. Like, that's the beauty of what we do. You get to choose who you work with.
Right.
Choose wisely, right? Just like I have to choose wisely. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
And I will say that, like, the one time that I made a mistake, I wasn't thinking.
Sure.
Now, with you, it was one time I made a mistake because I had did a signing for you, and then it had been a while since I'd done another one. And my issue was, which I said in the beginning, was that I was so used to not contacting the signing company because nobody was ever answered the phone. And I forgot about Marcy's instruction that said, call me. And the signers had a problem with the way they were supposed to sign their names and this, that, and the other. And I called the title company. And Marcy had a nice little conversation with me. And
I was mean to you, though? I wasn't mean to you, was I?
No, you wasn't mean, but you was like, why did you call the instruction? And I explained to you, and I said, I'm gonna tell her why. This is not an excuse, but I'm gonna tell her, I said, and it was the truth. I said, because my mindset was in the mode of don't call the signing company because they don't ever answer. And then afterwards, and matter of fact, I had to go back the next day because I think they had to finally get in. The title company said they just signed whatever. And I got to thinking myself, okay, Griff, clear your head, get out of your emotions, Griff. Don't take it personal. And then I was like, yeah, you was wrong. Okay, got it. Don't make that mistake again.
It shouldn't have been personal. I don't.
Right, and it wasn't. That's the thing. Right. It wasn't.
And we still work together after that, right? Like, that's the thing. But the problem I think sometimes notaries don't see is that what goes behind me. I have some clients specifically hire us because they don't want to talk to notaries. They don't want to answer what you shared with me. Closings, right? And so if a notary calls them, here's her answer to me. Like, why did I hire you if I have to do your job at a closing, right? And I get that because that's specifically what they hired me for. But I also totally understood, I think we talked about this, there are lots of companies that don't answer their phone or don't respond back or whatever that might be. And so I'm understanding of that too. I get it, right? There are times where sometimes I can't get back to you right away because I have 10 other people who are waiting in line for me. I certainly understand that as well. It just depends on the customer behind me. But I'm not going to not work with you because of something like that. Now,
right. I knew that. Yeah. And you had mentioned it to me. You said, well, you said, Griff, with this client, I have an agreement that phone calls come to me. That's all you said. Yeah. And when you said that, this is where having some common sense as the individual, when you said that, it like, okay, I got it. You have an agreement. Okay, got it. Between you, this is me learning how this flows. So your agreement with them is that you're going to take on. So I said, and then that's when I said, well, you know what? Marcy may have a certain level of experience that other signing company owners don't, and she can handle things that normally the title company would, but because of her background, this is what I concluded without ever asking you. I said, for her to say that means she has to have some level of experience that empowers her to be able to handle things for them. And therefore they're confident that she can handle it. Mm-hmm. Whereas another signing company, they're just being a conduit to get work from that person to us, and they have nothing else to do with it. So I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to see. And honestly, that helped me to understand the difference between certain signing companies. Then when I was like, okay, now you have the signing company owners who used to be notaries who was told to start a signing company. And if they didn't do a good job in running their notary business, they may not do a good job in running this. And if they was highly emotional as a notary about fees, they're going to be highly emotional about because it doesn't just turn off and turn on to you being a good signing company owner.
It does not.
It doesn't.
It goes back to building relationships, right? You building relationships with your client. I build relationships with my client, right? I have clients who their expectation is that they can reach me 24/7. Do I love that? No. I took a class and my business advisor said to me, mm-hmm. There's no way you're available at all times for that client. And I go, it is. It's the customer service experience that I provide them because they send me a lot of work and they pay me really well. And I can pay my notaries. They're a great client. So one night out of the blue, it was like 2:30 in the morning, and he sent me a text and he's like, hey, just checking in to see what you're doing. And I sent him a text back and I was like, hey, nothing. What's up? Can I help you? And he was testing me to see if what I was saying was really true. And the next day in my class, he said the example of, are you talking about it? Or are you actually doing it? Right. I'm not saying you should be available for your client at 2:30 in the morning. I'm a late night owl. I stay up late, as we just talked about. You and I have discussed on email late at night because I know you're a night guy too. And so I know I'm not disrupting you. And I have other notaries who are like that. I build relationships with my clients. That's why I have the clients that I have. Now, not everybody wants that kind of relationship. Some clients are like, just get the job done. I don't really care, Marcy, how it gets done or whatever. And that's okay. It's knowing who your customer is. Like we talked about, reading the room. What do they need from me and what can I give them? And for those, and I will say this too, I have some notaries who I won't use for certain clients because I know that they're probably not going to do the job that client wants. Not that they're bad notaries, but the expectation is a little bit different, right? I know there are some notaries who I wouldn't send to a reverse mortgage closing. Reverse mortgages require a certain kind of personality and a certain kind of temperament. And not everyone has that. And not everyone wants to do them, right? So, and that's okay with me as long as I know.
Wait, I don't understand why. Because
they're my favorite. My favorite.
Look, I get fed good when I do the reverse mortgages.
Yes.
I go there and they take good care of the person when you act right. And I have to say it that way, when you act like you got some home training, Sure. Now, one of the things that I think in 2020, 2021 that really upset a lot of signing company owners was when y'all called a notary, whether male or female, and asked them about getting something fixed. and the notary just went off, just flew off the handle. And I keep telling notaries, I said, don't be emotional. I said, just be logical, listen to what they're saying. And if it's something you need to fix, let them know you will fix it and find a way to fix it. And then they said, which me you talked about before we started recording, well, I work. Then why did you take the order? Because if you know that there's a chance that you might make a mistake, and you know you got the night shift the next 3 nights and you need sleep during the day for that, you probably shouldn't take a signing a day or two before your night shift session, because they're going to ask you to go get it fixed.
Or vacation. We talk about this all the time.
Vacation.
Right? Like I stopped working a few days before vacation. And here's the funny thing. I've been doing this for a long time. If you count all of my back, right? I'm talking about 20 or something years of working in loan signings.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I make mistakes too, right? It happens. Now, I'm going to say 90% of the mistakes could be caught, but the notaries don't double check packages, right? And that's always my first thing. If you had double checked your package, you wouldn't have missed a signature or stamp because you probably would have seen it, right? If it's really a true error where you double checked it, but it's a new form, you didn't know where they had to sign. I had a notary yesterday who I asked her to correct her documents, and she said no. She said this closing was very confusing, and I said, but who did you call? Did you call me from closing or the title company or the lender? Like, did you call someone to ask them to walk you through documents? And she said, I'm not going to argue with you about this. I'm not going to get them fixed. I don't have time today. And this was a person's commercial loan. The money was for their business. So she went into the signing. I canceled it completely. And I hired a whole new notary to go out there that night and re-sign the package. I had no options, right? It had to get done. Right. I think that there's a way on my end to talk to a person about how to get a mistake corrected. And there's a way for you to talk to me about it as well, right? If I send you an email or call and say, hey, listen, this happened, I need this corrected. Hey, Marcy, I'm really sorry. Here's what I can do, or here's what's going on, or whatever, we can work it out. If you're telling me, hey, I can't get out there for another week, you're stuck. Okay, well, but that's right. So today, even another example, I had a reverse signing. She got the document signed. She signed her name on all of the title affidavit instead of having the borrower sign. I don't know why. And shipped it back to the title company, who came back and said, you signed at the wrong spot. And she said, well, I'm in London. I'm in London for the next week and a half. I can't go back and fix those. Okay, but now I have to hire someone else to get that done. And here's the thing. Again, like we talked about, should I have to pay to hire that new notary and the overnight label because you didn't do the job that you were supposed to? So I said to her, I'm going to have to reduce your fee by how much ever costs me to hire this new notary. And then becomes this big, well, that's not fair. It was just a mistake. Okay, but like, you can't fix it for me and I have to get it fixed. And should I pay for a mistake that I didn't make, which ultimately, some of that's going to come out of my pocket anyway, right? But that's the thing. I think that the relationship building happens in that space. If it's a mistake that the lender made or the title company made, I'm going to pay you to get that fixed. My expectation is not that you go out there and get it done right without that. But if you make a mistake and, here's what I don't want to hear. I'll be honest. Oh, Marcy, everybody at this closing it was a mess. Everybody was angry and people weren't happy and there was a lot of commotion. There was a lot of running around. Okay, and that happens. And I know firsthand that stuff gets missed, but then I know you didn't double check it before you dropped it. So whose fault is this really?
That's on the notary.
Of the day, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's happening in that moment. That's your job. I once had a notary during COVID return an entire package to me, and that one document was notarized. The entire package.
I actually did that. Now, it wasn't for you. It was for another company. And what happened was that I went to the guy's house, the loan officer and the crew, and this is something they told, he was on the loan, but it just him by himself, but not the wife. So they had him thinking that, oh, she doesn't need to be here, because he said, well, does she need? Well, no, she's not on the note. And the loan officers keep telling the signers that, so they're thinking, oh, my husband don't need to be here at all. He's about to go out on a big fishing trip. He done went to the hairdresser. I get there and I'm like, where's your wife? And he's like, she's at the hairdresser. So I'm thinking it's going to be easy. Now, I'm going to say what he said. And I think he was giving me a warning. He said, yeah, sometimes my wife, she's not always there in the thought process.
Mm.
And I didn't understand what he meant by that. I was like, man, why are we talking bad about your wife? I'm like, ooh, to a stranger. I didn't get it. When I met her, I understood.
And that happens.
And it happened. And she frustrated me so much that I literally forgot to notarize everything.
But did you fix it?
I fixed it. Now,
Okay.
here's what was even crazier. So I was doing a training trying to help notaries out, and I'm in a Zoom with them, and I get this email saying FedEx is coming. I'm like, FedEx? What if FedEx coming? Then I get another email saying, hey, you didn't get these documents. I'm like, what? And I looked and I'm like, oh my God. I didn't notarize nothing. I didn't sign and stamp up. I'm like, oh, I'm sitting here freaking still trying to do the training online. And I'm sitting here. I went and printed everything off, and I'm signing and stamping. I'm putting the all-purpose acknowledgments on everything. And then right after I did all of that, scanned them and sent them back to the guy.
Mm-hmm.
The FedEx guy came, and it was the original. They was like, "Here, get these." And I sat there and did it. And I mean, I was terrified, but I understood what happened. I said, "This lady," because they had in the directions, you have to sign your name exactly as it's printed. She only knew how to sign her last name in cursive. For whatever reason, she couldn't sign her first name.
Mm-hmm.
So she just put her first initial, last name. And it frustrated me so much that I was like, I got to get away from her. And I got to get to my next closing. And I'm just done. And I said, and I did what I should not have done. And I've never done it again. I said, you know what? I will sign and stamp this once I get away from her. I'm going to go in the car, sit down. And when I got in the car, I realized I was running late for my next signing.
Yeah.
And I tossed the things in the back seat, got everything, didn't double check the documents. And I checked.
Mm-hmm.
I would.
But that's the thing, right? Well, this notary laughed on the phone and said, I'll fix it for you, but I need a trip fee.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now let me say this, Marcy. Well, I think you know. This is my thought. Here's the question.
Okay.
For a brand new human being, okay, notice how I'm saying this. A human being who now becomes a notary, meaning they never heard of this industry, never knew anything about it. How is it that they know to be asking for all of these extra fees? How do they know to pretend like, oh, I didn't realize scanbacks was due, but now you got to pay me extra because I know y'all, the signing companies went through that. People pretending like they didn't know scanbacks was due when the big old red thing said scanbacks. I said one or two reasons why a person is doing that now who's a notary. One, they've been taught to do that from other notaries, or two, they just little slicksters by nature and they figured out the game and they say, okay, I'm gonna do this. But then if they figured that out of way how they can get over, what are they doing? Teaching others. And then now that just trickles down. So that's why I keep saying it's the errors and the constant headaches that notaries are causing to the signing company that trickles up to the title company, that trickles up to the lender, that hits the signers, that's causing people to have to pay notaries less money.
And then I will say, like, if you're a good notary and you've been doing this for a long time, that is frustrating, right? I can see where the frustration comes from, but it's not about, I think I know it's a terrible thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sometimes I'll see these questions that people ask in forums, and I will say to them, you are not at all prepared to be a notary. Like, you should not be doing work out there at all if this is the question that you're asking. And then people get very angry and like, well, why aren't you more supportive? Because it's a business, it's a job, it's a career. Would you go to a doctor who was going to perform surgery and he asked the guy next door, hey, what do I do here? Right? No, you want them to know what they're doing. And I don't think that you should know what you're doing off bat, right away. I mean, there are things that you have to learn.
Right, like you develop into it.
Yeah, but these notaries who are like stamping where it says seal or not stamping because it doesn't say stamp on it. What I don't understand. I had a notary the other day who said, I never issue an oath for a jury. We don't have to do that here. Sure. What do you mean? Yeah, you have to issue an oath to that signer. What do you mean you don't do it here? Where is here? Where did this come from? Well, so-and-so told me. Listen, I post a lot of information out there, and here's the one thing I tell everybody. I think I know what I'm talking about, and probably 99.9% of the time, what I'm saying is correct, because I don't really comment if I don't know for sure or I can't back it up somehow. But you still need to double check me. You only know me from some chick on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Like, we take so much of what everyone says is gospel on there. Half these people don't even know your state. They don't know the rules. They're not doing it right themselves, guys. I understand asking and talking to people, but if you same with mentoring, you need to really verify whoever's mentoring you actually knows what they're talking about, right? Not that they're the cheapest or that they're free, that they actually have an idea of what they're doing. I think that's the problem. Everybody wants all this information and a lot of free, and it's sort of the nature of where we are, right? Social media and the internet. And you can Google. How many times I hear a notary say, I Googled it. Okay, but that's not.
Well, what I think also, Marcy, is that people are searching for someone to tell them the answer that they want to hear to justify them doing things the way they're doing it. I know I'm doing it wrong, but I need somebody to tell me that I'm doing it wrong. And I'm gonna believe that that's what's right. And that's why I don't mentor people. I tell people, I said my mentoring starts with my videos. I got almost 1,000 videos that's talking about all kinds of subjects. I even did a video about the word seal. I did a video in full detail giving the history behind that. I'm like, but y'all don't want to look at it because because to look at it means now you know you ain't supposed to do that.
But mentoring is different, right? Not to cut you off. When I talk about mentoring, I think it's important what I'm talking about. Mentoring to me is an individual who is going to hold your hand and really spend the time with you. So when people call me to mentor them, I tell them all the time, I'm not a true mentor. I don't have that kind of time on my hands, but I am a resource for you. And that is a different story. You can call me. And 9 times out of 10, if it's an out-of-state notary, not in New York, and I'm not 100% sure, I send them to their state associations, right? I think that's an important tool for you. There are some good state associations with good information. True mentors, though, are hard to find, and they deserve to be paid for their time, because I'm going to be honest and say to you that as a resource, I answer hundreds of questions every single week. And I don't charge anybody a dime because it's not what I'm here for. But it takes time out of my operating my business, right? But again, you have to know that the person that you're going to truly does know what they're talking about. And your commission is based off of what somebody else is telling you. And I guess it's scary for me, is that this is your livelihood, right? This is your career. Even if it's part-time, it is a career. And I always go back to notaries are personally liable. If you get incorrect information from somebody on the internet and you get sued, what are you going to say? So-and-so in my notary group on Facebook told me to. No one's going to care. It's you who gets sued, right? And that's what I tell everyone. Yeah, like we have to be so careful about what it is that we do. So I'm going back to you, but I wanted to really clarify the difference between being a mentor and being a resource.
Right. And that's why one of the things that I offer is like, okay, I have a YouTube channel membership. And some people came to me that was for real about really trying to do this business. And it was like, we want to pay you for your time, Griff. And I said, well, the reason why I'm concerned about taking payment from y'all is because I know y'all are sort of tapped out because y'all done spent money with all these other people.
Yeah. A lot of money in some cases.
Right. A lot of money with them. So with YouTube, when you, what they call it, when you monetize, they give you the ability to have a private group members. So, and you can set the fee as low as 99 cents. So I set the fee at, I think, like the low fee of $3.99. And I said, one of the things that I would do with y'all is, and one of the things that they get is like this video, I'm gonna show it to them first, and then I'll release it to the public for everybody else to see, because I give them, first dibs on certain videos that I do. But one of the things that
$3.99.
huh?
I hope this is worth the $3.99 that you all paid for.
It is. But here's one of the things that I do for them, Marcy. I tell them, I said, if y'all want, I said, it's up to y'all. When you get your first couple of orders, like your first up to 10 orders, if you're struggling or you're concerned or you're not familiar, you having a brain fog, call me and we'll do a Zoom and we'll do a quick document review to make sure you understand primarily the notarial areas and help you, because a lot of, I won't say everybody, but a lot of people, when I've done document reviews, now everybody knows that I'm not into I'm gonna explain the document. They know I'm about making sure you understand the notarial part, because that is what gets people paid. When you take it to the courthouse and that's not done right, they're not going to record it, and it stops everybody from getting paid. Notaries will still, okay, so in that paragraph, what does this mean? Yeah. And I'm like, anything above the signer's signature line, if that information you reading it does not help you with doing your part in the notarial area, you need to leave it alone. Mm-hmm. The only thing that it can do, because there's a few companies that won't put a title or a person's name on the signature line, or they might just say borrower. You need to maybe read through it to make sure that it's saying that this document is for the borrower, because if the people in front of you are the sellers, well, they don't need to sign it, because that paragraph is telling you this is for the borrowers, and vice versa. That's the only time I think reading or glancing through the document can help. But if you're trying to say, well, I just want to know what this document means, what it's all about. And I'm like, for what? I said, because you can know that, but if you don't do the notarizations right, the signing company's going to be upset, because because when they call you, they're not going to ask you. And that's it. They don't even ask the borrower, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but when they send a survey, they don't say, hey, so did Griff explain to you what the 4506C was? Did Griff show you paragraph 16 in the deed and what that means about you not paying your late fees and stuff? Did he explain that to you? Did he explain to you such and such page on this, that, and the other about the addendum to the HUD resources and why you have to sign it twice? Did he explain that to you? No, y'all don't ask that. I was the notary. Were they on time? Were they pleasant? Did they kick your cat? Did they throw something at your dog?
Were they dressed professionally? Right.
Dressed professionally, all of that kind of stuff. That's what they ask them, because the customer is not going to be trying to remember how articulate you were with the verbiage on the documents. Now they will remember if you got them confused because you was trying to say stuff and seem like you smart, and you got it all jacked up. And see, here's what I learned. I found out almost the hard way that sometimes the signer and the title and or lender been at each other. So you roll up in there trying to share something or clarify something on the document. And I almost had one guy try to set me up. He was like, so this, that, and the other, and something, my little spidey senses started tingling. I'm like, wait a minute. The way he was asking me was like, there was a backstory. And fortunately, his wife was like, honey, leave the notary alone. You need to talk to so-and-so about that. The notary don't know anything about that. He's just here to make sure we sign the documents correctly. But he's here. He needs to answer this question, because I'm tired. I don't feel like talking to Tom. I'm just using Tom. I don't feel like talking to Tom because he's always pissing me off. So I want to answer now, and the notary's going to give it to me.
And that's knowing how to handle that situation, right?
And what I did was I called the loan officer right then and there. Mm-hmm. I went in there because, this wasn't, now if it was your company, I would have called you, but it wasn't. But I forgot which company, but it was like, I said, well, sir, you want me to call the loan? No, I don't feel like talking. Okay, then let's move on. No, I need a, mm-hmm. Yeah, Tom, I said, yeah, yes, Mr. Tom, yeah, Steve needs it's on speaker, answer.
Yeah. Let your client be the bad guy, right? I say that to my notaries. Let me be the bad guy for you. I say that notaries get in trouble when they try to be helpers, right? I have notaries who border on giving legal advice or saying things that are incorrect because they're trying to help. What I always tell them is telling someone incorrect information is not helping. It makes things worse. I expect is a notary signing agent, that you know what the documents are and you know where to find the information should there be a question. And that means either pointing to the document and saying, here's your first payment, here's what the amount is, or calling someone to get it. I don't expect you to explain, hey, they say, hey, what kind of rates you've been seeing lately? Oh, I did a loan signing yesterday and it was 2.125. Like, I don't expect any of that from you. I don't want you to say any of that, right? I expect that you know where to get the information from, and I expect that you know your notary law. I don't love the click and sign notaries, and I don't love the ones who go line by line. I like the middle of the road notaries, right? Here's your mortgage. This is where you sign. This is your first payment, right? This is when your payment gets made. This is where you could send your payment. Move on.
Right.
If they ask those questions, right? Some signers don't want to do any of that, right? Some signers just want to sign. They don't want to talk to you about it. Some of it want in-depth conversation. And those are times where you're like, you know what? Let me get the title company. Let me get the lender. I want to make sure that you're getting the right information. You don't have to say, I'm just the notary, because no one wants to hear that, especially when they're upset. The last thing someone wants to hear is, I'm just the notary. I don't know what happened. Hey, let me get some better information for you. I say it all the time. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right information. Let me call so-and-so to get that for you. I think that notaries get into trouble at signings when they don't know how to handle a situation. They don't take control of it. And they get flustered. And if you're in a situation where the borrower is already upset or angry, they can sense that about you, right?
Yeah,
and they are going to expose it to some extent. So I am with you on that. Like, I think it's important to decide what kind of notary signing agent you are going to be. And I say that as the girl who loves reverses, because you can show me all your grandparent pictures and tea and show me what you're knitting. Like, I am that notary, right? I love it. I love meeting new people like that. So I don't mind it. There are notaries I work with who are like, nope, want nothing to do with it. And that's okay. But then you need to stay within that realm of what you're doing. And that, I think, is why some notaries do better with other signing companies or title companies, right? I think that it just depends on your personality. Most of my notaries tend to be somewhat like me, right? They're really people caring. They love the interaction. As you can see with this video, we all love to chit chat. We're social, right? Like, there's all of those things. And so most of my notaries are very like that, but they're very customer service based. So for me, that's critical. And they know their notary law. Not everyone is like that.
And the main thing that I try to help notaries understand, and a lot of people are like, well, Griff, you always say don't spend. And I tell people, I said, the reason why I'm cautious about that, because here's the thing. As a brand new notary, you get a document last minute. Marcy decides to take a chance on you because she has to. You know, she's a little cautious here. You're a brand new notary. But daggone it, I got Griff on 15 commercial loans right now today, and I need a notary. And I tell notaries this, starting off, focus on doing what your commission says you're there to do. Because you've been inundated with, because let's just be real, a lot of the trainers and mentors don't talk about notary law.
They don't.
They don't talk about notary law.
No.
So when you get your assignment, what's going to be the main prevalent thing in your head? How to say something about the documents. They done told you got to go get a stack of notary scripts that they stole from the NNA and they resold to you. Hint, be careful of that. But you got that. So now you got this stack of notary scripts, your stack of documents, and you're trying to do a one-to-one comparison, and you just got the documents 45 minutes ago or an hour ago, and you're stressing. And like Marcy just said, they see that. Oh, and there are people out there that like to mess with notaries. I've had some. They
Well,
like to
yes,
stir the pot with you.
you're dealing with the public. You deal with all sorts of people, and we want to say that everyone's a wonderful person. And I would say probably 90% of my closings over the
Right.
past I don't know how many years have been amazing, and then probably 9% have been. And then there's that 1% where you're like, I'm so writing a book about this because.
You're right.
But I mean, it's a small percentage, but that percentage is the one that will get you every single time.
Every time.
Oh, that's my
Yeah.
notaries. Those are the ones.
So and that's why I tell notaries, I said, and that's why even the people who aren't my YouTube channel members, I say, look, and y'all, if y'all see my video, I'll be telling people call me because I don't want y'all to fail. And I tell them, I say, look, focus on doing your part as the notary first. I said, and I told him, I said, when I first started, I would tell the customer, I said, yes, you're my first customer. You're my third customer. I said, but I understand what I'm supposed to do. So rest assured, you got the best notary possible. Okay. And then now here's the reason why, Marcy, and you probably already noticed why they don't call the title company or even call the signing company. Notaries keep saying, I don't want to call them because I don't want to seem like I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I don't please.
And I said, okay.
Please don't ever do that. Always call me and tell me if you listen. I'm going to stress this. I have no problem hiring a brand new notary. I know that that's not everyone, but I really don't. If you tell me you're a brand new notary, because I'm going to make sure that you are prepared for what I'm sending you into. What I don't love is when you kind of hide the fact and tell me I've done hundreds of signings, and then your package comes back and I say to you, why didn't you notarize the mortgage? And you say to me, oh, I didn't know I had to notarize the mortgage. Oh, okay. Right. Now I know you lied to me. And here's the thing. I would rather have a conversation up front about it. And the second part of that is I've had new notaries call me and I say, okay, I had the signing on this day and this time. And they're like, well, I'm brand new. And I say to them, oh, this is not the signing for you because I know it's a problem or it's super complicated or the borrowers are very angry. I don't want to send you into that, right? Like, that's the thing about
be successful.
That. Yeah, we're all working together here. There should be no shame in saying that you're new. We were all new, but not telling me that makes it worse. And it makes it worse if you don't call me and ask me. And like I said, that commercial loan where the woman had 37 pages of nonsense, and she was like, it was confusing. But why didn't you call me? We could have fixed it right there. And the borrower said to me, when I had to call him to apologize, because here's the thing that notaries don't realize as well. When this all goes wrong, do you know who ends up being the person who has to grovel to the borrower or the lender or the title company because things were horrible? It is me. Yes. And it is not always a pleasant conversation. And I get yelled at more than I like to talk about by some people when things go horribly bad. Again, Halloween notary stories. But the thing about this was when I called the borrower, he said to me, well, some of these documents we had already signed beforehand. And I told her we were signing them incorrectly and we should call someone. And she said no.
But you know what the notaries do? Here's what's crazy. And we've been on here almost 2 hours. Wow. Great conversation.
You said 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes. You told me, Griff, and this would be over. You told me.
Here's what I found out.
Valuable information, at least.
I know. Here's what I found out that notaries are doing. They will sit there and say, I don't want to call them because I don't want them to think I don't know what I'm doing. But yet they will call the signing company or the lender or the title company and ask them about how do I notarize something. I tell notaries, do not call them about the notary part because they're looking at you as the expert. Yes, you just starting, but you are the expert in the notarial part.
And if they're not in your state, they might not know all your rules, right? I'm a national signing company. I like to think that I know a lot of rules in a lot of states, and I do. But there are things that are customary or maybe a little bit different that I expect you to say to me, hey, Marcy, this is what I need, right? Then I research it and come back to you. So I would agree with you that you're the one who's responsible for knowing
the notarial part. Yeah. Ask them about the documents if there's something confusing so you don't get in trouble with that. But if you know that your state, like for me in Virginia, I can't collect closing funds unless I have a title license.
Yep, Crespo license.
And there are companies who do not mess with me because they know that they cannot get Griff to carry the closing funds. They are actual title companies, and I'm like, okay, I guess I won't be doing work with them, and I guess I will be, doing something else until other companies, say, hey, we want to use Griff. But that's just the way it is. But I don't call them about the notary stuff. And the reason why, I did it one time, and the person said, well, you're supposed to be the extra. Why did we hire you? And I said, you're right. Thank you. And I hung up and I found the answer. And I said, that will never, ever happen again. So I learned my lesson. They expect us to know how to do our notary stuff, but even though they may not say it all the times, if it's coming to a confusing thing about the actual documents, they want us to call. And then lastly, this is what I found out the most. There has never been a lender who has ever got upset with me having, calling them or having a customer to call them to make sure they understand something about the documents.
Yeah.
Has there been a few signing companies? Yeah, there have been a few signing companies because they want to look good and they make it in, and they're concerned that I might make them look bad. Have there been some title companies? Yeah. But I've never had a lender say, Griff, why did you call me? Every single lender that I've ever had to call or text, they said, thank you, because that's my client and I want to make sure things are right with them. Because they may have a more personal relationship they do have a more personal relationship than the title company, and especially the signing company. The signing company just doesn't want us to make them look bad. And I get that.
Sometimes.
But we got to make sure things are done right. And you don't want the notary saying or doing something wrong and all of that. So
I'm going to say this in regards to calling the lender. So I don't actually have a problem most of the time calling my lender if you can reach them. And sometimes you can't, then that's a call to me, because sometimes I have a phone number that you don't have access to, right? And I can get someone on the phone. But I'm going to say in those cases, you still want to let your customer know what happened, right?
Right.
There's nothing worse than getting blindsided when my title company calls me and said, hey, your notary called the lender last night and this is what got said. Because the package will go back and there'll be documents that aren't signed. And I'm like, well, why don't you get them signed? And the notary will be like, oh, we called the lender. And I'm like, who did you talk to? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I need that information to pass it along, right? And so therein lies, I think, the next problem sometimes is there's not always great communication. And sometimes there's not, I'm the first one to know. Sometimes there's not great communication from me because I didn't know either, right? I'll have notary say to me, well, you didn't tell me. And I'm like, okay, but I didn't know. And then there are times where I know, and I'll call the notary and say, before I send this over to you, I want you to know, like, this borrower is really unhappy, or he's not a nice person, or whatever, and give you the option. But again, communication, I think, is the second reason notaries end up on my do not use list. You have to be a good communicator. Like, tell me what happened if there was a problem. I make a joke and I say, a good day for me is when I didn't talk to any of my notaries. Not because I don't love you all, because I do, but that just means everything went well, right? The closing went well. There were no problems. You had no issues. Having said that, though, if there's a problem, if there's an issue, if something happened, you have to tell me, because I need to make sure that I can convey it to my customer. Because when I can't, and that package goes back and you're like, oh, the signer said he wouldn't sign, these 7 pages, but I didn't send them to you so you could just print paper frivolously. I sent them to you because they had to be signed, right? You need to make a phone call to someone to find out what you should do. And then I'll get notaries to say, well, I can't force them. No, you can't force them, but there needs to be a conversation about it, because their loan isn't going to fund, or it's not going to close. I say this all the time. I had an old boss who used to say, it's the golden rule, right? He who has the gold makes the rules.
Yes.
That's how this works for all of us. We all answer to somebody.
Well, thank you so much, Marcy. This has been great. And you're the first signing company person out of 2.5 years, almost 3 probably, that I've been asking, because I just want people to hear it from y'all. I know I say a lot of stuff, and I know some people, maybe even some signing companies, think that I'm trying to stir the pot. But I tell people all the time, I say, if you really listen to what I'm saying and doing, I'm trying to expose that there's some misinformation out here, and these notaries need to know how y'all really feel and think, And you don't always have to do it in this form, but what you can do, some of the signing company owners, they could actually have a private Zoom,
Yeah.
somewhat private, whatever, and just go ahead and explain to them, say, hey, look, here's what the issue. And I know there's emails that go out from various signing companies, hey, this is the issue. But sometimes people need to actually hear your voice and say, look, you're going to have to stop doing this. You need to stop listening to this information over here that's telling y'all to do these things. We ain't playing that. Because guess what? If your kids came home doing stuff that they learned from down the street, look, we are the Griffins. We are not the Johnsons. We don't do that. And he like, you want to do that? Go pack your bags and go down there and move in with the Johnson. Because they don't have cereal. We got cereal. So
Yeah.
act right and don't be doing that mess that they do in their house down here. And that's probably what may need to start happening from some of the signing company owners. Say, look, this is how we do things. When you're working with us, work this way. And we'll be
signing
fine.
companies need to do better. So I want to say two things, because I think this is important to say, is that one is that I told Griff this when we started. I said I would come on here, even though I know there are some notaries who hate signing companies, and nothing I say is going to endear me to you. Right. And I'm going to put myself in a position to be vulnerable and to be out here and have things said. Right. And I agreed to do this because I think that there's a greater good at hand. Okay.
Right.
But I'm also going to say signing companies need to do better too. Right. Like, we need to be aware. And I like to think that I'm better at what I do because I'm a signing agent and I have a lot of background. I will say that some of the notaries who work for me, and I think Griff will say this, is that I'm pretty strict about what I allow and what I don't, right? And that doesn't endear me to every single notary out there. There are many who end up on a do not use list who are super angry with me and have no problem saying that. But that's how I choose to operate my business. But signing companies need to understand too that this is a relationship, right, between the notary and the signing company. So we have to do better in that respect too. And I want to say, to wrap up before Griff wraps up, is that this wasn't meant to be a whole negative, notaries are horrible, because I don't feel that way. And the notaries who work for me probably know that. I have an amazing core batch of notaries who have been with me for a very long time, and ones who are new for me. But I am aware that I wouldn't have a national signing company if I didn't have notaries operate with me throughout the country. They are the reason why I have my business, right? It's not just me, it's all of us. I really believe that we're a team and we work together. And these notaries that we're talking about, that Griff and I are talking about, are not the majority of notaries. No. The problem is, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So the problem is that small batch of notaries who are not operating at the same level are the ones who are drawing attention to what we do, right? And that, I think, is where we all together have to take a stand and really be better about what we're allowing to be said in the notary community, okay? Calling this out. Like I said, 6 figures gross is not the same as 6 figures net, right? There is a difference in that. Running your business as a hustle and running it as a business is different. Being a notary who chases 6 figures and being a notary who chases the customer service aspect operate completely different. I just feel like if we all sort of came together a little bit better and not this us versus them type of thing, I think that we would be farther ahead. But I give huge kudos to those notaries out there who do the right thing. And like I said, I have an amazing group of people who work for me. So this isn't about all notaries, and it certainly isn't about most of my notaries. They're pretty amazing people. I hope that they know that, and I hope that I make them aware of that, on a weekly or monthly or daily basis. And I hope
I feel great working with you.
How grateful I am for what they do. So if you're not getting that from the company that you work for, then my last thing I'm going to say is maybe there's not worth working for them.
Right? Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, Marcy. Party people, there's nothing else for me to say because we've said it all here. And I just wanted somebody to come out and share and give y'all an insight on what goes on with signing companies. At least this one, which can be the same for others, and it can be a wide variety. But at the end of the day, I know you've learned something, and you should have a different view and approach, and find a way to make yourself look valuable to them, and give. And as I always tell the people, once they understand that they can trust you,
Mhm.
they will use you repeatedly. You have to show them that you can be trusted, which means sometimes you need to just promote that you understand the notary business rather than promote all of these trainings you took, because they are aware of these trainings and they know what these trainings teach you and what they don't. And if they know that the notary training that you've taken is not going to empower you to do the closings that they want the way they want, why would they select you?
Mhm.
They're not. It's that simple. All right. Well, y'all have a good one. Thank you again, Marcy, for
Thank you so much
everything
for
you do.
having me.
No, you're welcome.